Kia ora, and welcome to this workshop on paraphrasing and quoting. My name's Camille Turman and I'm with Libraries and Learning Services. There are activities throughout this workshop, so for you to get the most out of it, I'd suggest you pause, go and get yourself a pen and some paper so that you can do the activities as they happen. To begin with, I want you to imagine that you had a lecture today at university about the use of scenario planning to identify the key issues that will shape the future of New Zealand tourism. Your professor defines scenario planning as the process of visualizing what future conditions or events are probable, what their consequences or effects would be like, and how to respond to or benefit from them. Later that day you get home and your 4-year-old brother wants to know what you learnt. Pause the video and have a think as to whether you would use the same words as your lecturer. If you would, why would you do so? And if you decide you use different words, why would that be? In this case, you would change the words to help your brother understand more clearly about what you'd learnt. This is an example of paraphrasing. So in the workshop today, what we're going to work on is recognizing when to paraphrase and when to quote in an academic context. We will also give you the opportunity to practice how to write main ideas using your own words. Paraphrasing is when you express what somebody has said or written using different words, especially in order to clarify the meaning of the original. Quoting is when you use the words of another writer, and these are reproduced exactly in terms of wording, spelling, punctuation, capitalization, and paragraphing as the original piece that you're quoting. So we're now going to do a quiz. Have a look at each description as it appears and decide whether it applies to paraphrasing, to quoting, or to both. You may need to pause the video for this activity. Paraphrasing, quoting, or both. Does not match the original text word for word. Is usually only a small segment of the original text. Matches all, some of the original text word for word. Involves putting text in your own words. Must reference the original source. Changes the words and or phrasing of a passage. Uses quotation marks. So let's check the answers. For paraphrasing, you do not match the original text word for word, but you do need to keep the same meaning as the original text. You can change some of the words and or structure of the passage because it involves putting the original text in your own words. So what's important for paraphrasing is that you keep the original meaning, but you are using your own words to describe this. Quoting. For quoting, you must use quotation marks. This indicates that you are quoting. You will match all or some of the original text word for word. And it should also be used sparingly in academic writing. There are times when you are required to quote, and we'll cover that in an upcoming slide. Now, for both paraphrasing and quoting, it is very important that you reference the original source to show where you got the information and the ideas from. Remember back to the start when we talked about your lecture on scenario planning. In that context, we needed to paraphrase to help your 4-year-old brother understand. However, in an academic context, there are other reasons for paraphrasing and quoting, and we're now going to look at those. The first reason for using paraphrasing and quoting in academic writing is to demonstrate to your reader that you have a deep understanding of the topic. It shows that you have read around the main ideas
and arguments with that topic, and you're able to rephrase them using your own words, thereby demonstrating that you have a good understanding of that topic. Now, before we go on to look at the next lot of reasons, I'd like you to pause the video for 2 to 3 minutes and for you to think of what these other reasons may be. Note them down, and then we can look at what we come up with. Welcome back. Let's see how you got on. So another reason for using paraphrasing and quoting is to provide support for claims or add credibility to your own writing. Similar to the first point, what you're doing is referring to previous knowledge, ideas, and research in the topic and using that as evidence within your own writing, thereby adding credibility to what you're saying. A very important reason is to avoid plagiarism. You need to reference and cite where you get your information and ideas from, and by paraphrasing and quoting correctly, you will be following those guidelines. Paraphrasing and quoting also allows you to integrate information by assessing, comparing, contrasting, or evaluating it. Again, you're looking at previous ideas and information in writing and bringing that into your own argument or essay through the process of assessing, comparing, and contrasting. It also helps to maintain the flow of your writing, so you're giving your reader a complete picture of the research in that area. It also helps to emphasize a position that you either agree or disagree with. Similar to the other reasons, it again lends weight to why you might agree or disagree with something, and it gives the context there that you need. And the final reason we came up with was to cite different points of view. A lot of these reasons are similar to each other, but what they're doing is demonstrating to the reader that you have read widely on your topic and that you do understand the main ideas and arguments, and you're using that to weave a coherent argument in your own essay. We're now going to move on to quoting. A warning first on quoting. Quotations should be used sparingly, and it is preferable to use your own words. However, there are some instances in your academic writing when you do need to quote. One of these is when you need to define, describe, or explain something. In those instances, if you can quote the definition or the description or the explanation, that may be preferable than paraphrasing. You should also quote when the original is more concise than your summary could be. The example here is Yeoman et al. 2011 describes scenario planning as a tool for ordering one's perception about alternative future environments, page 119. In this example, Yeoman's description is more concise than what a summary would be. And the third reason for quoting is when the original expresses an idea in a distinctive way. The example here is scenario planning provokes a high turbulence within the participating group, Taylor et al., 2002, page 188, where traditional thinking is challenged and creativity is infused. It would be very hard to paraphrase high turbulence within the participating group to get the same distinctive meaning that Taylor et al. Have managed to achieve in that sentence. One thing to note in these two examples is the in-text citation, where it is acknowledged where that quotation comes from. Now let's move on to paraphrasing, and this is when you're going to get a chance to do some activities to help you learn how to paraphrase. We're going to begin with word level paraphrasing. We're going to give you some words and ask that you brainstorm 2 to 3 synonyms for each word. A synonym is a word or a phrase that has the same or nearly the same meaning as another word or phrase. For example, instead of saying pretty, you could use the word beautiful and still maintain the same meaning as pretty. So the word that we're going to look at for our example now is tourism. So some synonyms for tourism could be travel, holiday market, tourist industry. We're now going to ask that you find some synonyms for each of these words: critical, growth, industry. Pause the video and for each word try and think of 2 to 3 synonyms. Welcome back. Let's look at what you came up with for critical. The words I came up with were important, necessary, crucial. You may have thought of some other synonyms, and that's fine. Keep those noted on a piece of paper. For growth, the synonyms I thought of were upwards, emergence, development. And for industry, I came up with enterprise, group, manufacturing. How did you get on with each of those words? Did you come up with the same synonyms or some other ones? Be careful with word level paraphrasing. For a start, don't overuse your thesaurus. And you also need to look at the whole sentence and think about the context of the sentence when thinking of a synonym. Simply swapping out a word for a synonym doesn't always work. You need to make sure it maintains a meaning for the whole sentence in its context. We're going to now look at word level paraphrasing within a sentence. So the sentence we have, which comes from Yeoman et al. 2015, is in New Zealand, tourism is a key contributor to the country's economy and employment. Thinking back to the synonyms we came up with for tourism, we'll try to substitute tourism for one of those other words. We could use in New Zealand, travel is a key contributor to the country's economy and employment. Another option would be in New Zealand, the holiday market is a key contributor to the country's economy and employment. Note for this example, we've also inserted the word the to make the sentence meaningful. In New Zealand, the tourist industry is a key contributor to the country's economy and employment. Read through those 3 sentences again and have a think about which synonym works best in the context of our original sentence. For the example where travel is used as the synonym, does travel in this context mean the same as tourism? Probably not. It's more of a narrower definition rather than the broader concept of tourism. Travel could just mean going by bus somewhere. The holiday market is probably similar. It's like a subset of tourism as a whole and has a different meaning than what tourism does in that original sentence. So the sentence that probably works best, or the synonym that probably works best, is the third one, where we have exchanged tourism for the synonym the tourist industry. Again, it depends on the context and you always need to be aware of that. We'll have another go at this using a new sentence. In this case, it's going to be managing sustainability is critical to the continual growth of the industry. So exchanging the bolded words for some of our synonyms, we'll see if we maintain the same meaning as the original sentence. Let's just use the first synonym for each of those bolded key words. Managing sustainability is important to the continual upwards of the enterprise. With this sentence, you'll see that exchanging critical for important probably works in the context of the sentence, but exchanging upwards for growth and enterprise for industry doesn't really make sense in this context. This example helps illustrate why word level paraphrasing isn't enough. And in a university context, what you need to do is change both the vocabulary and the sentence structure as well. We will now have a go at sentence level paraphrasing. Using the same sentence as before, what we'll do in the first example is change the order of the sentence. So managing sustainability is critical to the continual growth of the industry can become critical to the continual growth of the tourism industry in New Zealand is managing sustainability. Yeoman et al. 2015. Note how we've done our in-text citation. You can remember to also change the vocabulary. In this case, we'll use some of the synonyms that we found earlier. Imperative to the future of tourism in New Zealand is managing sustainability, Yeoman et al. 2015. So that sentence still has the same meaning as the original sentence, but the order has changed, as has the vocabulary. Another example of sentence level paraphrasing is to use a conditional statement. In this example, the sentence becomes, if tourism in New Zealand is to keep developing, it will be essential to manage future growth. Yeoman et al. 2015. The conditional word in this statement is if. And the third example is to begin your sentence using a reporting verb. In this case, the example is Yeoman et al. 2015 state that managing sustainability is central to the future of the New Zealand tourism industry. State being the reporting verb. Reporting verbs are verbs which express a neutral opinion, or a stronger, more direct opinion, or a tentative, less direct opinion. Pause the video for a couple of minutes and have a read through the different examples of verbs for those three opinions. We'll now give you an opportunity to practice sentence level paraphrasing. Read the following sentences and try paraphrasing these. Remember that you could try changing the order of the sentence and the vocabulary, or you could use a conditional statement such as if, or you could begin your sentence with a reporting verb. Pause the video now and read through the sentence and then have a go yourself at paraphrasing this sentence. Here's two examples of how this sentence was paraphrased. The first one is, according to Sherlock and Wagstaff, too much Instagram can do harm to users, especially when they are involved in making comparisons detrimental to their well-being. The second example is Sherlock and Wagstaff study 2019 suggests that Instagram can be harmful for individuals, particularly when they compare themselves to others. Both examples are good for changing vocabulary and also sentence structure whilst maintaining the meaning of the original text. The second example does cite correctly, so that would be my preferred example for this particular sentence. Here's another sentence for you to work on. Again, pause the video, read through the sentence and have a go at paraphrasing. Pause the video and have a read through both sentences. Which one did you choose? For me, I chose the second example. For a start, they've cited the original text. I think they've also reworked the sentence structure really well, and they've changed the vocabulary around, but of course the meaning of the original text is still there. Note that they've also used a reporting verb in their example. This is a really good example of paraphrasing at sentence level. Let's recap what we've covered so far. An effective paraphrase keeps the same meaning as the original text in some phrases that are in common use. It changes the structure of the text as well as the vocabulary, although there is an exception around technical terms. It will also reference the original source. So we've done word level paraphrasing. You've just had a go at practicing sentence level paraphrasing. The final level that we do is paragraph level paraphrasing. What I'd like you to do now is to read through the original text and then to look at the two examples of the paragraph being paraphrased. I want you to have a think about which example is a better way of paraphrasing the original text. Pause the video to give yourself a chance to read through those three pieces of text. Which example did you choose as being the best way of paraphrasing this paragraph? We thought option 1 was a better example. For a start, they cite where the original text came from, whereas example 2 doesn't.
Example 2 also uses exactly the same words and vocabulary as in the original text with a few changes, but not enough changes for it to be a good example of paraphrasing. Also, option 1 keeps the same meaning as the original text. So what are the main steps for paraphrasing? The first step is to read through the passage until you understand it thoroughly. You may need to read through it a couple of times. You may find it helpful to underline the main points. The next step is to jot down notes or to make a mind map without looking at the original source. Write your paraphrase in your own words. Remember to change both the vocabulary and the sentence structure. Put quote marks around any words or exact phrases you have borrowed from the original source. Check that your paraphrase accurately reflects the meaning of the original. And remember to reference the source of the information. Using the steps for paraphrasing, have a go at paraphrasing this paragraph example. Remember to read through it until you understand it thoroughly. Then, covering it up or looking away from your screen, have a go at rewriting what the main points of the paragraph were. Good luck. Well done. That brings to the end our workshop on paraphrasing and quoting. In this workshop, you've had the opportunity to learn how to recognise when to paraphrase and when to quote in an academic context. And you've also been given the opportunity to practice how to write main ideas using your own words.